Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Petronas Future Talks 2021 series, continuing with the theme of stewardship in energy sustainability. We have today's session here, and this is session number 5 of the series, titled From Ideas to Reality, the Innovation Process and Business Excellence. Now, as businesses continue to face the accelerated energy transition, changing consumer trends, as well as rapid development of digital and technology, innovation is no doubt a key enabler that can be leveraged upon for companies to seize opportunities to grow. We have seen companies like Apple, Amazon, and closer to Malaysia, Shopee, Grab, adopting successful innovation can not only improve a company's competitive advantage, but also allow them to leapfrog others and be ahead in the game. We have an interesting lineup of esteemed panelists in the area of innovation and business excellence today, and it will make for an enriching conversation as we unpack this topic further and hear their views. I'd like to introduce the first panelist, Shaiful Bin Ismail. Is currently the Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy of Petronas, an integrated energy company. In his role, Shaiful is responsible for charting the path of Petronas in delivering superior business performance while navigating the accelerated energy transition by growing into new sustainable areas. Shaiful has more than 30 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. His career includes project execution and engineering, internal audit, governance, and business development. This experience allows him to add value across the breadth of Petronas' business and operations. He has also taken on leadership roles in areas of petroleum management, strategic planning, and change management. Welcome, Shaiful.
Thank you.
Our second panelist today, Zed Zongyin from Shopee. Now, Shopee is a well-known multinational technology company focusing on e-commerce. Shopee currently serves consumers and sellers throughout Southeast and East Asia. Zed Lee is the Senior Manager of Business Development of Shopee Malaysia. And he oversees the ideation and creation of several seller programs and initiatives of Shopee to provide a conducive environment for local sellers on their e-commerce journey, with the aim to drive the digitalization of businesses in Malaysia. This includes running the free seller workshop, Shopee University, new seller support package, and more. Having been with the company since its inception in 2015, Zed has helped grow Shopee to become the preferred e-commerce platform by Malaysians. He brings with him a wealth of experience of the industry. Appreciate your presence today, Zed.
Thank you for having me.
Our third speaker today goes by the name of Bill Randall. He is an advisor for the Amazon Web Services for the region of Asia Pacific, Japan, and China under its professional services offering. AWS, short for the Amazon Web Services, is the subsidiary of Amazon, providing on-demand digital innovation and cloud computing services to its clients. Bill, in his role as client advisory, provides organizations with the expertise to develop leadership, innovation culture, and strategies to cultivate new business ideas and transforming them into viable commercial propositions. Now, Bill brings a very unique blend of entrepreneurial and senior corporate management expertise to the clients. In addition to his passion of innovation, he was also the founder and managing partner of a venture capital platform. Welcome again to all three speakers to today's session. Now, let's begin the session. Obviously, innovation process and the link that it has to business excellence is a very heavy topic. But I'd like to begin with an easier kind of line of conversation. And let's begin the session by unpacking the one well-used word of the topic today, which is innovation. And I'd like to hear views from our panelists here in terms of what innovation means to their companies. Shaiful, let's begin with you. With the first question of, Petronas gives a lot of emphasis on innovation. how do you see innovation as being a key component to drive business excellence?
Thank you, Shah. In the first place, it's great to be here and with the esteemed panel of Bill and Zed and yourself, Shah. So to your question on innovation and its role in business excellence, really in my mind is innovation is key actually to excel at anything, be it business, be it our own individual life, right? So over the years, we have seen how innovation have progressed us globally in the areas of safety, agriculture, food, any industries that we are in, and even healthcare, right? So now we are in the pandemic all across the world. The advancement and innovation in healthcare and caregiving in the sense of the development of vaccination, the development of antiviral medicines, the development of oxygen enrichment equipment, all that is very helpful. And we can't run away from innovation because that is at the center of what progress is. And at Petronas, innovation is also not an alien concept. Since the very beginning, innovation have helped Petronas to actually extract, for example, oil and gas molecules in a safer, more efficient, more effective, and cleaner ways. It has allowed us to actually push LNG globally in the early years of early 1980s, where actually LNG displaces solid and liquid fuel and make it into a cleaner environment. And you know, all that it allows us also with my colleagues in our research arm, for example, to develop fluid technology solutions that allowed Petronas Mercedes-AMG Formula One to win 7 world championship races in Formula One. So we keep pushing it. So it's not an alien concept to Petronas. In fact, it's actually very core to what we do. Now, having said that though, today, there is an urgent and intense call for greater pace, a lot more extended outreach. This is in part, Shah, to what you have said earlier, right? So the world is changing rapidly. There's a change customer preference. Following that, the policies change as well. The technology is right at the center where allowing all these paces to be at its greater pace than ever before. And it also, for Petronas, more importantly, it also lands us in energy transition. When we talk about energy transition for an energy company like Petronas, we must continue to strive to make oil and gas a lot cleaner in delivering that energy. And it also necessitated us to reach out for a renewable energy source and also other non-oil and gas businesses as well. Now, the question that we must have in mind when we talk about innovation, especially for us in Petronas, who else could benefit from what we have? So we have certain capability, we have products, we have services, we have solutions, right? Who else can we benefit? So we have to reach out and see who are the customers out there that we can solve their pain points. You know, what is their need and how can we meet that need? That's question number one. Question number two that we must always have is how else could we create meaningful impact for, right? So who else is out there? How do we solve their problems? How do we meet their needs? So with these two thinking, the mindset that we have, it is important for us in Petronas to keep pushing the envelope and satisfy those needs. And, you know, at Petronas, innovation is about how do we enrich people's lives? How do we generate more sustainable future? And how do we create value while doing that? And you know, when we talk about innovation, pushing the envelope, of course, we are taking more risk because we are going into territories that's not familiar with us before. But that doesn't mean that we can be reckless. In fact, to do real innovation, we need to be more focused, more disciplined, having greater, deeper understanding. And then and only then, excellence can be achieved. And that's what innovation is to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Chimazin. I really like, you know, your excerpt on, you know, enriching people's lives to ensure a sustainable future and going by that notion and working back from there and understanding their needs, is what drive, our innovation thinking and providing a sustainable solutions. So really resonate with that. Bill, Amazon Web Services have helped many companies in optimizing business operations and accelerating innovation. Can you share with us what are the things or services in AWS that help accelerate innovation and why these are important?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to play off. First of all, great to be here with everyone, and Chemazwin and Zed and Shah. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. And Shah, I have to give you a real shout out because the group of companies that you said were just fantastic innovators are generally really good partners of ours in the business world, and I love hearing their success because one of our goals at Amazon and at AWS particularly is around helping our clients innovate. I mean, it's really, I would say, is the driving force behind what we do there. So it's interesting you mentioned what does innovation mean to us, and how do we help accelerate some of that. Chemazwin, one of the things you just mentioned I thought was really interesting. You said consumer preferences are changing, right? And not only that, they will continue to change at a faster pace. So even though each time we adapt and then we innovate, their preferences are going to change again and again and again. So the idea of this is a virtual cycle that will continue to go forevermore. And I think one of the things that you also mentioned around about the pace that's happening in the world, and I think about global innovation over the last, say, 50 years, right? And if you think about the last couple years, right, in the face of the challenges that we've had globally around the pandemic, and if you look at how quickly companies who thought that they might not be the best innovators or even were laggards in the space, how many of them all of a sudden discovered that they could be great innovators. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's amazing when the pressure is on how we can change our tune. And that cultural mindset to me is incredible, right? And so Shah, one of the things, and I'll take a step back here. If you look at the Fortune 500 back in 2020, right? And if you look at that list of companies today, only half of those companies are still on the list, right? And so, and if you even go back further, there was a statistic that Andy Jassy, our former CEO of AWS, he said at our reInvent, and I think, and I don't have the exact number there, but it was significantly lower. I mean, somewhere in the range of 25% of the companies from 15, 20 years before that. And so, when we look at innovation, the sustainability, when I say sustainability, I mean by your industry leadership is so critical to your ability to continuously reinvent, right? And to have yourself be at the head of, not necessarily, you're not always going to be the number one product leader in what you're doing, but are you striving, and is your mindset and your culture in that place? And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that more later on. But if you think about what makes Amazon special in its ability to support the cloud, obviously we all know what cloud, that we don't maybe necessarily all know what cloud is, but the idea of cloud computing is really specifically designed to help companies innovate. It's changed the game in terms of, the word I'll use related to innovation is called experimentation. That is really the crux of what it's done. And if we look at some of the core technologies and the capability that we've provided people, we've allowed companies to be able to experiment faster, experiment more cost effectively. The removal of heavy laden infrastructure that was there, that was managed by your own organization, we're helping them reduce the cost of innovation. And so, I mean, we have products and services that cut across database, data, AI, machine, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So across the board, where we continue to look and see how we can really innovate our services so that customers can do that. But if you look at the core capability of what we deliver in cloud infrastructure and the associated services is truly, we are there to continuously develop products and services that just basically help our customers innovate. And so Che Maswin talked about just understanding those customers. There's nothing more important from us. Everyone's heard Amazon customer obsession, and that is really the driving force behind what we try to do.
Thanks, Bill. I really like when you say partnership. Your partners with some of those companies that I use as examples, and hearing from Petronas and hearing from AWS, which provides innovation advisory services. Maswin spoke about the need of the company now to be attuned to changing customer needs. And Bill, you said as a partner, AWS now needs to be attuned to that need and allow companies like Petronas to innovate faster, experiment faster, reduce that cost so that they can innovate faster and be more attuned to their customers' needs. That's good partnership relationship to me. Now, moving on, right? The topic today is obviously on innovation process and business excellence. Now, innovation obviously is one half of the coin, and the other half is business outcomes and results. Innovation is not for the sake of innovation. Now, let's understand how innovation can really unlock superior business performance, particularly in gaining unassailable competitive advantage for some of the companies. And I'll begin with that, Shopee. And the one thing that, I have a personal anecdote that I and my wife really like from Shopee is that chime from our mobile that speaks about good news and joys about products being delivered and orders being received. I will not try to emulate how that chime sounds like, but it sparks joy and delight in customers like me. And the question is, Shopee being a renowned leading online platform marketplace, can you share with us the role of innovation in ensuring the success of your business?
Sure. Thank you very much, Shah. Thank you for your support, and thank you for inviting me to be on this very illustrious panel together with Che Maswin as well as Bill. So I really resonated with what they shared earlier just now, right? There is a certain element of being customer-centric when you're innovative. There's an element of constant adaptability to what's happening in the market. And those are common themes that we feel Shopee really resonates to when we think about innovation, right? So the way we look at innovation in Shopee is that it's really a realized business outcome. Now that's quite important, right? Because there's this association with innovation, with bright ideas, with the next big thing, with with brainstorming, which is important. But really, those are just ideas until you get to a point where you realize them, right? So there are quite a few steps to lead towards innovation, to this outcome of achieving a greater business success, right? And the first is what both speakers have mentioned before this, right? The idea that you need to focus first on the problem or opportunity. So I think in Shopee, spend a lot of time figuring out what's happening in the market, where the opportunity is, right? What really is the problem we're trying to solve, such that that problem guides the ideation process, where a lot of people then associate with innovation. The idea that you start off first with ideas is probably misplaced. You really start off first with asking yourself, what's the right problem to solve, right? And then that leads you to ideas. Now, the very important thing that comes after that to realizing this, which is exactly the question we mentioned, right, is that this is a process of bringing that idea, which solves a problem, to fruition. And I think that's what we emphasize a lot on in Shopee. The idea that you need to be able to run fast, you need to execute quickly, you need to be able to then deliver value to the consumer, to the buyers, to the sellers, right, to everyone you work with within that ecosystem. So really, this is largely ecosystem play, which we're really helping add value towards. And that's how we see innovation. So I'll give a couple examples of how we realized this. When Shopee first started about 6 years ago, right, we came into an ocean that's a little bit pinkish, right? Not fully red, not quite blue, a little bit pinkish. There are a couple other players around. So we had to find a great foothold to enter the market. When we had to look around, we see what possible is, and we realized that there was a big problem in what was then called social commerce. You had a lot of sellers selling stuff on Instagram, on Facebook, and naturally those were not e-commerce platforms, right? Those are platforms primarily for social media, social interaction, and they had some challenges, which they kind of welcomed. But that represented an opportunity for us to come in to deliver a best solution in terms of how people can collect payment online, deliver goods, a seamless process for both the seller and buyer. One of the key things, one of the key innovations that people mention now and take for granted is this idea of a Shopee guarantee. The idea that you hold an escrow when the buyer makes a purchase, and you don't pay the seller until the buyer actually receives the good, right? Sounds very simple to all of us right now, but back then that was a very strange, very new idea to a lot of people on Instagram and Facebook. So stuff like that. It's really about solving a problem which existed, and then quickly scaling the solution to many people, as many as possible, and that's how you bring about innovation. So there are more examples of these things to come. Recently, we've 3 years ago, we launched Shopee Life because we realized that there's this urge to not just buy stuff. A part of buying is also this interaction with people, right? Understanding how people see a product, how to use product, to really talk people. There's an element of entertainment to everything here. And that's an element we then brought into the whole shopping experience as well. A great example for me is back, right? So I went on holiday in Langkawi, and we were queuing up for bubble tea, right? Because it was just really hot and it was a long line. And I saw this lady in front of me just swiping. She was swiping, it's like, must be playing with Instagram, right? And that's why you always do swiping. But as I got closer, I realized that she was actually swiping Shopee. And what that told me early in the game was that, hey, shopping is not just about transactions. Shopping is about fulfilling a need to be entertained as well, right? And if the opportunities for entertaining people, how do we innovate to bring the entertainment with shopping together with to our consumers? And that was basically part of the ideation process of how we then came up with Shopee Life. We came up with all these games in Shopee, which we are well known for. Shopee Shake, if you guys played with that before a long time ago. All these is really tying with the idea of there's entertainment to shopping. We need to make it happen for consumers. Let's try to do it as aggressively, as widely as possible. And that's how you then realize entertainment as part of innovation as well. Again, during lockdown, I think we're very fortunate and very happy to be able to play a role to help both our buyers and sellers in lockdown for the past 2 years. Both fulfill needs, right? So we rolled out fresh goods services where buyers can buy fresh vegetables from farmers in Cameroon. Right? So it solves the problem for both the farmer as well as consumer when the vegetables is going to waste. We solved the problem for people who are unemployed because the economic downturn, business was good, they need a sideline. They started selling stuff online. And great innovation is not that they're selling stuff, right? It's how they go about selling. So you see, remember, if you go along the highways, you see the small stalls, right? Selling sambals and coconuts. That used to be the default way of doing a side business. But now people do that while working in office. After work, they go online, they sell their sambal online. And with sambal coming all the way from Kuching, sourced from local farmers, produced that now comes to East Malaysia, West Malaysia, and produced, we're looking to export overseas into other countries as well. Right? So all this is part of that process of building more and more ways of solving a problem for both our buyers and sellers. That's the outcome we're going after. Now, one of the things you also touch upon as well is the idea of how do you then introduce this culture of innovation into the company. And like what Chick Masumi mentioned, this is really a culture, a mindset. It is not just a 5-step process you go through and then bam, with innovation. It's really about how your employees, your people think about how to respond to the market. And one of the values that we have in Shopee is this idea that we stay humble, right? And that's not just in the way you interact with people. It's also about the way you understand the market. You can be the biggest player around. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as an unassailable moat. There's someone who's going to come along and eat your lunch. You always need to be hungry and move forward. And you always need to be humble because there are other people out there. There's changes in markets, which you need to be sensitive to. And that's really about what being humble means. It's about knowing that you're constantly never going to be best. You need to strive hard and you need to serve your customers because if you don't do that, they will run away. So that's one of the cultural elements we instill in our employees as they come into Shopee. And the second to that, right, is this element of being able to execute quickly. So you can humble, you can know what to do, but if you don't execute well, that's when you run into problems. For sure, e-commerce is a really new industry. We don't know all the answers. We're very cognizant of that. But what we find is that if we test and try, I think Bill mentioned that, right? Experimentation is extremely important. Go out there, test, see what works. If it works, double down on it. If it doesn't, it's okay. Move on. It's a lesson you learn. You gain knowledge, and you now better understand how to drive things forward as well. So this idea of experimentation, of being able to quickly test and learn, is an extremely important component of the innovation process. So don't fear failure. Fear falling down and not getting up, right? And that's how we push towards a more innovative ecosystem. And that's something I hope that we can also share with audiences today.
Thanks, Zach. That's a great point, and I have to tell you, I love the escrow concept. As a consumer, that's a inherent security problem that I always have. Whether a particular seller is safe to buy from. With that, it completely takes that worry away. And I like the way that you anchor, especially in the lockdown situation, in the pandemic situation, where people tend to see problems as problems, but you see them as opportunities, problems to solve. And the whole idea is to find ideas and ways to solve that and scale and execute that quickly. Now, I'd like to kind of like anchor on that and turn to Mazwin, right? Now, obviously, getting ideas to solve, ideas are abundant, right? I mean, it's easy to think about ideas and ways to solve problems. But what are the challenges to transform it to realization, right? And in executing it, as we've heard from Zed, in being able to scale and execute quickly. And how does your company overcome the challenges of execution?
Yeah, 3 words. And these 3 words I actually learned from Bill. It's validate, right? So in properties, location. In innovation, taking it into reality is validate. Really, it's actually Zed also talking about this needs to be tested. If it's proof, then we double down. Bill talk about experimentation. It's the same thing, right? At the core of it, we have to be very certain that there is a customer need in the first place for it to be a reality. Otherwise, the ideas are just ideas. And if there's nobody could relate or it's not relatable to anyone, it will not happen, right? So there's customers need that it is serving in the first place, and enough number of customers, and not a single one out of whatever billion population in the whole world. There's also the need of that we need to be certain that our solution addresses that need. As well, the ideas addresses that need, and there's also we need to be certain that there is a viable business that could be made out of all this. So with that, we stand a higher chance that the innovation, the ideas can be further developed into reality. But is that enough? Maybe not, right? So Harvard Business School sent out a survey. What are typical drags or blockers for large corporations to innovate really well? And the 3 biggest challenges are, number 1 is actually competing for resources, right? Resources are limited. Money is limited, time is limited, talent people is limited. And in energy industry like us, and actually it's everywhere, our carbon emission footprint is also limited. We have to have a cap. Actually, we have to try to zero-rise it, right? So we have to address that. So there's a huge competition for resources. So new ideas, new growth spaces, how will that compete with a core business that has been doing so well all this while? So the second one, it turns out to be larger corporations that exist for decades. And if I relate to Petronas, 47 years, right? So in all this almost 5 decades, we have tuned our culture really well. We have developed process over the years through all the lessons learned. We have developed and nurtured our system that is working so well. So when I mentioned earlier to you, Shah, and when we're pushing the envelope because the outreach needs to be a lot more, the pace needs to be a lot faster. Some of these processes or systems may not be suitable for the new ideas, new innovation, and to change that is not necessarily easy, because we take comfort that the process that we have developed, we know them like the back of our hand, has managed the risk really well. Now, to test something new, it needs to be proven. So that's the second drag that typical large corporations have. And the third one is the successes enjoyed by large corporations that take them from before to where they are today may at times limit the view of what the future could bring, how the world could pivot, how the trajectory could change. And we need to be very mindful of that. And at Petronas, we understand this, and we really look and scrutinize, in terms of the resources that, how we allocate them. We look at our ecosystem, process systems, and whether that is actually suitable or actually blocking innovation. And, we develop scenarios time and time again, and talk to the experts and do a multiple projections how the world could be. Now, this is extremely important. So we have to do all that. And to supplement that, there are a few peg points that is actually required. So let me talk about Petronas experience, right? So the first one is actually purpose. And this is why we do the things that we do, so that all our team understand why are we doing things every single day. So, a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a better future is key. So actually it underscores the progress, which is actually we have to innovate. It's about enriching lives. It's about sustainability. So that is actually rally everyone in terms of our purpose. And very quickly following that, we recently retuned our cultural belief, and the new cultural belief that we have is actually leaning more towards customer centricity, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So that will supplement the purpose just now, where that the culture that we live in, the practices that we have, will lead to that. And both combined will have or create a conducive mindset for actually innovation to happen, and we have a higher likelihood to achieve execution success. On top of that, we set really stretch but achievable targets, I'm sure, and that will also actually pull all our teams and all the companies and people that work together with us to rally and really very focus on delivering results. And talk about funds, we do set ring fence funds to actually nurture this. Because we understand the competition, we have clear targets into what our portfolio looks like, and that guides us moving forward. So there are plenty of levers that must work, especially in large corporations, for this to happen. But at the core of it is actually that customer need, and the rest must follow suit.
Thank you, Mazrin. I think that's really good. I mean, Petronas is such a large company, I think close to 50,000 people. And, to rally, that kind of scale, right? I mean, obviously, very clear, definitive purpose, single set of a culture belief, that anchors to customer needs and getting everyone to be on that laser sharp purpose is very important to ensure that we hit in the same direction. Bill, over to you. The rapid pace of technological change is disrupting industries of every kind, and ensuring innovation ideas and business thrive in this challenging environment. Can you share with us current innovation at work with AWS currently?
The answer is yes and no, being very transparent. So, the first thing just to share with you, as you know, customer obsession. I mentioned it before. That's one of our key leadership principles. And Zed, as you talked about it, that from the principles that you have at Shopee there, and they guide us. They help us guide us in our decision making that we have internally. And as part of this, we have this concept of a flywheel. All right. And so the first thing I'll share with you is that, just imagine this. Yes, you might have heard we have robotics. We have technologies that have come out in the last couple of years called SageMaker. We are a leader in what's called serverless computing. It's where you're able to do certain computing activities without actually even needing to be, in the server. And so the idea for innovation for us, we innovate. To give you an idea, last year, 2020, we had delivered over about 2,750, just slightly around there, but 2,700 meaningful innovations for our clients. Now that basically says that we're there looking specifically at what we hear from our customers. We're trying to also look around the corner. A lot of times our customers don't know what they need. And we're out there as we said, experimenting, looking, and continuously thinking forward. But 2,700 meaningful innovations in that year of 2020. And so one of the things so I can't really share with you specifically, like that big telephone company. I'm not sure if I should use their brand name here or not, but that one that you never know. I go into their shop and I keep saying, when is the new version coming out? And they keep saying, I don't know. And I was going to say, I don't get privy to all of the current innovations that are at play. But you just look at the innovations that we've had in the areas of data analytics, AI, ML, robotics, et cetera. And it's just a testament to what the kind of things that we're doing. And again, I'll just reemphasize that they're just there to allow our partners, our customers, and these other organizations to just really go at speed. Shaiful, when you talked about the speed at which you need to go, and I would argue that speed is critical. So a lot of you, I'll share with you a little bit about the process that we have. It's quite well known. Jeff Bezos has talked about the working backwards process that we have at Amazon. And I think one of the things that's unique about Amazon is that the company's been around for a while now. Sometimes people think of Amazon as just a startup. Now we have a saying that every day is day one at Amazon, right? That we're always at day one, and that's the mindset that we like to have. But at the end of the day, we have, I think, built a reputation for being able to innovate at speed and being able to innovate relentlessly and pushing the edge of innovation, right? And that's all been done through this working backwards process. So if you ask me, one of the innovations that we've had is over the last couple of years, we've built mechanisms in a way that we can share the working backwards in the approach that we innovate within Amazon, and we share them with our external customers, right? And to let them know how this working backwards process works. And it's really, just that, as you said, it just starts. We don't talk ever about a solution or an idea first. We are constantly thinking about where that customer's problem or pain point starts from, and we apply a particular process that we use, right? And that process has been the crux of what allows us to deliver these innovations. But I think the interesting thing here is that each time that we help share that process with a customer, then they innovate. By them innovating, so for example, Zed, if it was Shopee innovating, and then you came back to us and all of a sudden said, well, that creates probably a new need with that new innovation. You come back to us and say, how can you help us deliver on this new idea that we have? And that forces Amazon to be customer centric, and then we innovate as well. So it's this flywheel of innovation. And this for us is one of the greatest things, that we love to share that process with everyone else, because we think the more that everyone else around us is innovating, if they can win at innovation, well, then we will win at innovation as well, because we'll be there to build the backbone and the infrastructure around that helps them do that faster and at speed. So Shad, the answer to what are we doing at Amazon, right? I'd say one is absolutely sharing that. Number two is consistently out there with benchmarks of each year trying to develop and deliver new innovations in that space. And I'm sorry I can't be more specific around what we're working on right now, but you can certainly see from some of the recent technology advances that we have as a company at Amazon. I love watching the news as well as other people do around some of the things that we have at Amazon Go, the revitalization of Amazon, physical bookstores. You've seen Amazon Prime Air, which has been, you can see that on public listed there. That is the drone delivery services that we're in experimentation around. So these are all the kind of things in a broader sense. But each one of those is just a result of lots of backbone innovation. And Shaiful, when you mentioned about focus, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I hope I have a chance to talk about it, because I think, as you mentioned, that the idea of focus allows for the speed and allows for you to really execute on what you're trying to execute on, because we can get very we can get very unfocused, and there is a time to actually say time to pivot, and that is a critical component, and using that successfully.
Thanks, Bill. No, actually, you absolutely answered my question 100%. Everybody kind of like knows about products and, and innovation on, some of the things that you mentioned, but I don't know whether a lot of people know the kind of services that Amazon offers in scaling. We talked about scaling things, in scaling your culture, your innovation principles through the working backwards to other companies like Petronas. And if Petronas has a purpose of enriching lives for a sustainable future, imagine you scaling the principles that have worked in launching products in Amazon to Petronas. Essentially, you are extending your purpose to enriching life for a sustainable future through other clients as well. That's really powerful. Moving on. One quote that I like is, I've read this, right? Nothing is stronger than habit. And innovation obviously is not just methodology or the process, but also culture that needs to be embedded in order to sustain it repeatedly. And as a result, the business performance will come in more consistently as an outcome. Now, I'm going to start with Bill, simply because, you open up just now with working backwards. And one other set of principles which have been kind of like almost offered and shared to the general public is these 14 Amazon leadership principles. And one such principle that I'm gonna repeat here is learn and be curious. Leaders are never done learning and always seek to improve themselves. They are curious about new possibilities and act to explore them. Now, as we kind of like unpack a bit of this culture thing, innovation is often associated with being nimble, learning from failures, test and pivot, experimentation, whereas traditional businesses are based on rigid structures and processes and procedures. Bill, do you foresee traditional businesses transform their mindset to embrace the innovation culture, and what are needed to make it happen?
Yeah, it's a fantastic, just love the question. I love the space to think about, because it's not as simple as one would think, because this idea of rigid versus non-rigid. And and first, Shah, I think you need to update yourself. We have 16 leadership principles now. So each year, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Amazon is the innovation in our own leadership principles. And every year, we are constantly reviewing those principles to make sure they can continue to be the guiding light and the guiding force behind some of our success. And so 16 now. I'll share those other.
You're right. Strive to be Earth's best employer, and success and scale bring broad responsibility. That's just been updated. Sorry.
No worries. But it's funny that you talk about scale there. It's about helping scale as well. But I think the cultural mindset. First of all, to answer your question, absolutely. I mean, companies, they must be adapting their culture and their mindset around this. The first answer is absolutely, and I think that there's a couple things. Chemazwan, you talked about focus, right? And you asked Shah about rigidness around is rigid holding companies back? And I'd like to argue to say, I don't know. Rigid is not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on your business outcome, right? And it's not all about process, but it's your willingness to be nimble in your rigidness. Do you see what I'm saying? And because you mentioned two completely different things, and one of the things that we need to always be at odds with mindset is that how do we shift? How do we let things keep moving when they're working really well? And how do we shift out of them when we know that we need to be disrupting ourselves, right? And so that would, for us, would always come again from what is the business outcome? What is the customer? What's required for us to understand our customer more? And if the processes and the procedures and the mindset of the company are not allowing that exploration, that experimentation to happen, well, then then we need to do something about that. Then we'd be looking for some change, and we'd have to think about how do we do something different. And I want to kudos Che Mazwin and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I mean for Tengku Taufik, the first thing I would say that needs to happen is top down, right? There needs to be absolutely an unwavering support of leadership, and Che Mazwin, yourself as well in that organization and strategy. I mean, it is critical if without having your senior leadership believe in disrupting yourselves and being nimble and being willing to do something, well, then no one else will. It always starts at the top. So that's number one. The second thing I found that large organizations struggle with, and this is going to sound silly, but it's the willingness to experiment, because our customers we built customer relationships over long periods of time, So, and in your case, Che Mazwin, 40 years. Zed, in your case, you're a little bit younger, right? But you're building those customer relationships. I mean, your company's younger. I'm not going to give you any advantage on the age front, all right? So, so the idea of the willingness to experiment, yes. And the willingness to experiment, a lot of companies have felt that their customers, I'm afraid of experimenting, particularly that if customers see that those experiments don't always work out, will they have a different view? And one of the things that I think the best companies at disrupting, their customers have learned not only to appreciate, but to love and be delighted by the fact that their service providers, by their partners, are actually taking the initiative to make their lives better. Just like you said, Mazwin, if I'm going to make someone's life better, let them know that's what I'm trying to do. And you know what? I might get it wrong once in a while. But give me the space to do it. And that's my mission, is to make your life better. And in fact, if I can do that, the only way I can do that is through that experimentation. So when companies get better attuned to that, I think is a massive change in mindset. The third and the final one I'll give you my experience in innovation is the area of thinking big but thinking small. And what I mean by thinking small is not think small, but it is start in a niche space. Because one of the things, Che Mazwin, that you mentioned was that one of the strategies that you've taken to allow for this innovation, and whether it be through an incubation process, a support of small companies. But if you look at most of the incredibly successful unicorn type organizations, or these really large companies that have developed themselves even over the last 20, 30 years, Amazon started as an online bookseller. That's what we were. That was it. And 25 years later, we're something very different. And if you look at even some of the most successful businesses that we've seen grow up, they started off with a single, very focused idea. When I say idea, solving a single problem in the market space. And let me make sure that I stay aligned with what we believe in, that customer first. But a very sliver of a problem that could then grow into other areas and build on that. And to me, that's something. Those are three areas where I think large enterprise can rethink some different views on how they engage in innovation, because innovation takes courage. It does. And it's that courage that when you stand for it, I think makes and your customers see it, and I think they in the long run they appreciate you for it. That might be a Bill Randall belief, but I truly believe it and I live by it. So, but I'm sure I'm confident that it's a Jeff Bezos belief as well.
Thank you, Bill. Now this year, Petronas has recently launched the Petronas Future Tech 2.0 with an increased application from 165 in the first edition in 2019 to 365 in 2021. 20 startups have been chosen for their innovation in tackling Industry 4.0. What are the focus and support given to this chosen startup? And how does this startup benefit Petronas?
Thank you, Chef, for the opportunity to talk about Future Tech 2.0. 2.0 because this is the actually second cohort. It's supposed to be 3.0 in this year, but 2020 we have to pause for a bit because of the restrictions of movement due to the pandemic. Let me backtrack a bit. When since the inception, Petronas has been helping, as we said about enriching lives for a sustainable future on two parts. One, from the very beginning, from the very establishment of Petronas, we have been helping a lot and focusing a lot on helping on the education front, right? So schools, helping them out, setting up universities, and handing out scholarships globally, and we do not stop regardless of the oil price. And the other one is actually developing a lot of local vendors wherever we operate. So that has been going on. And we understand that, and we talk about UN SDG, Sustainability Development Goals. This is SDG 4 and SDG 8 we're talking about. And that is an opportunity for us to bridge between finishing education and, creating a successful business. That is the startup space. So, and to help that one out, especially in Malaysia, we want to make that space more prolific because there are good individuals out there, very driven, very smart. And how can we capitalize from such talent so that the whole country could benefit? So we created a program called Future Tech. This is where Petronas contribute in a way that we take the chosen startups. I'm so sorry that there are 165 applications in 2019, 365 this year, but each cohort we can only accommodate 20, and then these are the best ones. And what we do is actually we've got a partner from a very established global venture capital experience to actually build the startup's capability in a way for them to scale their business. That's number one. At the same time, Petronas also have contribute by having our technical and business mentors from Petronas themselves to actually also upskill the startups. And this year, unlike 2019, we do it on our own. This year, we are glad and honored that we are joined by Telecom Malaysia and Survivability Plantations as well. So we are able to actually upskill at speed the startups so that they can quickly able to scale up, have that experience from a global VC. And during the course of the session during the Future Tech 2.0, they have the ability to have a direct contact with Petronas, Sime Darby, and Telecom Malaysia, 3 large corporations in Malaysia. And not many companies or startups will have that experience, and this is a golden opportunity for them. And like in 2019, we will also expose them to many other global companies for them to pitch at, and we'll bring in many more investors to actually listen to them. In 2019, we have almost 700 attendees, comprising of global companies and investors that listen to the startups. And some of them have got good investment, and some of them are testing their concept at those companies, and some of them with us. So actually, the startups have the ability to increase their capability very fast, be exposed even at the global level. But the advantage is not only for the startups, right? I like to pick the word used by Zed just now, being humble. And we have to be humble enough to understand that the individuals that we meet that is actually leading the startups are really capable, really smart, and very driven individuals. And Petronas, although as large as we are, have a lot to learn from these individuals, these teams. And they are at the edge of innovation, really pushing the envelope as far as they can. And there's a lot of things that we learn in terms of their mindset, the rigor, the spirit. That's number one. And really, some of the offerings in terms of products and services are just fantastic, and it will help us out. So it's a win-win-win, right? So the country win, the startups win, and of course Petronas, Telecom Malaysia, and some Dabi plantation will also benefit from this. And we do hope that we can continue these installations further, and more corporations will join us. But yeah, we are really excited to actually increase the participation of startups in Malaysia, and we would like to nurture the ecosystem better.
Thank you, Sheikh Mazin. I mean, I really like the angle on the win-win-win as kind of like a good complementary achievements across the board by going through such initiative. The last one, perhaps that Shopee have grown rapidly since establishment in 2015. What's your advice to new entrepreneurs in ensuring their survivability in the challenging business environment through innovation?
I think, Shah, that's a very interesting question, right? So, and there's an element of survivability, right? And I would challenge our entrepreneurs, right, to not focus on survivability, right? And the reason is this. Now, when you try to survive and you focus every day on trying to survive, you do two things, right? You do the bare minimum to survive, and you focus on things that eat you, your competition, the lions and tigers out there, right? And really that detracts from what we've been discussing this whole session, right? Which is either that you really want to be customer-centric. You want to solve the problem. It's not that you take your eyes off the competition, right? Competition does matter, you need a landscape, but really your first and primary focus should be about succeeding. And to succeed, you need to innovate. To innovate, you need to be customer-centric and solve the key opportunity and problem market, right? So entrepreneurs out there, whether you're a small business, big ideas, small ideas, doesn't matter. What you really want to focus on is how do you solve that problem in the market, like Bill mentioned, that single problem to get you started, right? And that's where you build upon where you've succeeded to go even further from where you are right now. Now, then the question comes to, how do I know what the problem is? Right? How do I know what's in the market? How do I know what everyone's concerned about, right? And the only way to do this is to go out there and talk to people. So that's what we spend a lot of time on, right? So we spend a lot of time on sending people to the ground to speak to our sellers, to speak to our buyers, one-to-one, to try and understand what's really going on out there, right? And that's how you really find out about the opportunity, because that's when people complain. So, Malaysians being Malaysians, right? Every one of us, even Singaporeans as well, love to complain. And everyone gripes about all the complaints out there. But really, when people complain, they're telling you that they care about your success enough to tell you what the problem really is. And that's where you should listen about the problem and figure out, how do I solve this problem for them? Because that's where they come back to me. And that's where I can serve them over and over and over again, because I know what the problem really is. So that's where you really want to focus on. Focus on what's happening out there. Speak to people, find out what's going on. So we've done a couple of things on Shopee's site to try to make this easier for our sellers as well, right? We have tools like the Business Center. We have something called Selling Coach, where within the service itself, you can find out what's top selling products, what people are looking for but not buying, what kind of things are on the market, what's competition doing, right? So all these are ways for you to have insight and figure out what's going on in the market, and that's where you stumble upon the problem to solve. Now, linking back to what we've mentioned just now, right? Sometimes it's not enough information. You need to probe for more. And the way to do that is like what Bill and Jake mentioned. You've got to experiment. Send little probes out, right? Go test. Let me buy this product. Let me see if it works. Let me figure out if there's a way for me to have a low-risk test so they can quickly withdraw if it doesn't work, right? Some people do this with drop shipping. Some people do this by basically, Dell's story. He sold a product before actually building the product itself. Some people actually do that as well, right? And all these are innovative ways of solving a problem which everyone faces today, right? But crucially, that testing, that probing the market would help you learn what is going on and how do you capture the opportunity, right? So test, learn, find out what the problem is. And finally, the last bit of advice I'll give is like what Bill was alluding to just now. We are all about partnerships. Right? It's not just Amazon Web Services serving its clients and therefore it's a partnership. It's a partnership because all of us in this ecosystem need to collaborate in order for us to succeed, right? And this would be our suppliers, our downline, our third-party couriers. By working together and by innovating together, by talking to each other, that's how you really can build on the competitive advantage to win over everyone else who believes that they're that one person and all they care about is themselves. Share, learn, and together we'll grow together and succeed.
Thank you, Zed. And that's all the time that we have. I kind of like, this is one of those sessions, I kind of like wish, personally, I have more time with these esteemed speakers, between Shopee, successful e-commerce, and Bill Randall, AWS, and working backwards and then sharing the innovation principles across. And Sheikh Mazwin in Petronas, and the purpose behind enriching lives for a sustainable future and using innovation to achieve that. Lots of lessons. And if I were to draw a word cloud here as a summary, customer obsession, needs, problems in whatever definition or iterations come really strong. Validate and talk to people and customers in understanding their problems, having a clear purpose, a culture that supports it, humility in undertaking this, and Bill, you mentioned about leadership and having the courage and willingness to experiment and think small and do things well. And everyone kind of like wholeheartedly, agree. We then have to scale, execute fast and quickly. So many takeaways. And gentlemen, it's been a great honor. I thank you for spending your time today in sharing your experiences and wisdom. Wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Bill.